So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our PA Forum CSR session. Really excited. I can't believe that this is the last CSR session that we're having for 2024. It only seemed like 5 minutes ago that we were kind of putting this agenda together for the year. So I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody that has contributed and joined the sessions. We've already started having conversations around what the plans are for next year, and we've got some really excited guests that we're going to have involved, and some different sessions for you all. So a massive thank you, and it really is kind of the momentum is going and growing with this group, and something that it's great to kind of give back to the PA Forum members and to all of you that have got involved. So thank you. So the final session, we're kind of finishing on quite a high, which I'm really pleased about for 2024. We're going to be kind of talking about an impactful and inspiring session, and actually kind of thinking about how do we support others for Christmas time, and also kind of focusing more on some charities that I know are quite close to people's hearts, and also about how they can actually support different charities and things as well. So I'm really grateful to our two very lovely kind of speakers that are going to be joining us today. So we've got Wyn Charles that's with us from Freeth, and Caroline Rees-Williams from the Valesco Group that will be also talking to us as well. So both of them are very busy executive support roles and office managers. So as well as having very demanding roles that they do for their companies and their offices, they've also got charities that they actually support, and trust foundations that they also support as well. So what we're going to kind of do, they're going to kind of share their knowledge and insight into the charities that they support, and also kind of cover off some of their crucial roles that they actually do for those different charities. And hopefully it was like some of the questions that we've had from members about actually how do you get involved in the charity, but also how do you set up trust foundations and things as well. So I'm hoping you'll find it really kind of interesting to kind of find some more information out and things as well. So massive thank you again to Wyn and to Caroline. And we've got some questions that we've kind of been going through. So I'm going to kind of kick start and welcome Wyn to the session today.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining.
Brilliant. So I'm going to kind of kick off, Wyn, with you actually volunteer at Crisis. So what inspired you to volunteer at Crisis, and how did you first get involved?
So Crisis, you'll see that over the years, I don't know about anybody else, 10 years ago, you could walk down the street and you'd get asked for money. And what inspired me was the years went by, you get more and more people asking for money. You even get them now at I don't know if any of you drive, at traffic lights, you get people asking for money, and it just became more and more noticeable that there's a lot of people out there who need help. I did a lot of research on Crisis before I actually joined them, and I wanted to basically put my efforts into helping and being part of an organisation that cares for people, and also those small acts of kindness leads to bigger things, and I wanted to be part of that bigger picture of helping people and getting them support that they needed. So I joined in 2019 and have been doing year-on-year support throughout the year to help Crisis and help individuals to get back on their feet.
Brilliant. So I know you've kind of touched on it. So tell us a little bit more about Crisis, and they're based in Birmingham, aren't they, as well? And a little bit more about the charity. Yeah,
sure. So Crisis is there's several different hubs across the UK. There's one based in Birmingham, which is in Digbeth. They offer one-to-one support for individuals who are going through either bereavement, eviction. So they actually help with legal support, they help with employment, financial, healthcare, and they also partner up with companies who help people to get back into jobs. I also am part of a women's group at Crisis, who we've actually called Power Up. We've called the group Power Up to help empower women to get back on their feet. We have this session every month, and we encourage them to come along. We help them with CV writing, job opportunities. We help them how to navigate around the IT. We help them how to find courses that they want to go on, and we also help them with fun activities as well, because it's a safe space for them who, they've moved out of home and they could be on their own. So it's, we take them out to the cinema, we go to the botanical gardens, and we just spend time with them, as well as everybody else outside of this group. We also have help advocacy workers, who are people who have been homeless and who want to actually volunteer to help other people get back on the ladder. But you can also join as well as a help advocacy worker, and this actually helps you to contact a member. If they are nervous at getting to an interview, you can actually encourage them or travel with them to go to an interview, and you can actually support them if they're nervous about going to a doctor's appointment. You can actually travel with them to the doctor's, but obviously can't go in, but you can help them and encourage them along to help if they're struggling to anything like that.
Yeah, and I think that's how we started our conversation, talking about the events that the Power Up group kind of do and get involved, which very much kind of aligned to the PA Forum members, and actually how could individuals help, and kind of links up to the mentoring scheme and the programme, and especially with trying to give them that added confidence with trying to get back into the workplace, or like you say, just being a companion and things as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. So is all this information about, so if people were interested in volunteering or expressing interest to be able to help, is this all information that can be found on the website, or how do people get involved in that?
Yeah, so you can get involved on the website. As I said, there's year-on-year volunteer roles, so they do post roles on the website. You can also donate yourselves, or you can actually do campaign work. You can also, there's a website that they have, which is online shopping website, which I've sent to you, Sarah, so you can share with everybody. And if you have any skills-based volunteering, if anybody's a hairdresser, part-time hairdresser, or a beautician, or knows a recruitment officer, you can actually come in and help the people, the members, with skills that you already have. So if you like doing nails, you can actually come in and do a nail session. At Christmas, we do have healthcare volunteer-based individuals who come in and support everyone at Christmas. So on Christmas Day, we have a shelter where a doctor comes in. He gives up his time on Christmas Day to help do general check-ins. We have an optician that comes in on Christmas Day. We also have a beautician that comes in. We have a musician who comes in to help people learn to play guitar or a keyboard. So there's different skills. If you know of anybody, or if you have any skills, you can volunteer in that way. I'm not a singer, and I go to singing lessons with the members, but it's all about interaction. And I also do bake sales, food donations, and everything's on the website if ever you want to get involved.
Okay, that's brilliant. And I've got the kind of the wish list that Wyn shared with me, which I can share out as well, and some more details about kind of getting involved with the charity. So I know you've kind of touched on it, Wyn, around kind of your actual role as executive assistant, and you've got that busy day job, but also I'm quite intrigued because I think some of those skills that you probably use in your workplace are actually quite valuable to Crisis and supporting them. So what are some of those transferable skills, and how have they kind of linked to Crisis?
So definitely communication. So I lead a busy work life, working for 14 executive lawyers, And one of the things that I am say I'm good at is organising. And one of the things that's what I do at Crisis is at the beginning of the year for every women's group, we sit down and we discuss what we want to do each month. So April is always the end of financial year. So we always have a financial session around there. Christmas, we're doing wreath making. So we plan our sessions. So I'm quite good at making sure that there's something that everybody has to do. Or if there's things that people want to know more about, we always plan ahead. And just helping and the knowledge and resource that I have at work, whereas some people can't get that immediate information, whereas I could get that information and help them along, whether it be the search engines on the internet on what to look for and how to get there and ways around it and supporting them in whatever they need. So I think my knowledge of what I have is transferable to what I do at Crisis.
Yeah, and I think that's quite interesting because actually some of the actual key skills are probably more valuable to the people that need the services.
Yeah, because some of them haven't got computers and they haven't got access to the internet. So just having that extra support or knowing where to look to find something is just helpful.
Yeah, knowledge is power. It always is quite useful to people. Brilliant. So we've kind of talked about how like the PA Forum members can kind of get involved, but what has been the most kind of rewarding part of your volunteering at Crisis, and what impact have you seen to people?
So my rewarding part was we had a women's power up session and we had a session about CV writing, and I sat with a lot of the women and spoke to them about how to get their searching for jobs and opportunities, and we did a whole session of how to search for things, narrow things down, how to look for everything. And then it was until the following month I turned up and one of the members came to me and she said, "You forgot to give me your phone number." And she said, "I got the job and I didn't have anybody to tell and I couldn't tell you about it because how she was just so excited at how I gave her the tools on what to look for and how to look for it." And then I ended up getting a Crisis mobile phone. So they can call me at any time when it comes to things, like searching for things, or it was just rewarding that she actually found a job that she wanted, and her joy lasted a whole month until she saw me again, which was amazing. I think that was the most amazing time I've had.
Yeah, that's kind of, your kind of support and help has really been beneficial to her and to kind of her motivation as well, and her kind of passion and involvement in being able to try and to find like suitable employment and things for us. So that must be really, really useful.
Yeah, and I think for us, it could, the little things that might be quite easy for us, it can't be quite hard for other people. So those little things do, it plays a bigger picture to other people.
Yeah, and I think actually probably a lot of people that are on the call, you don't necessarily associate those tasks or those ways of volunteering that would be useful for kind of homeless shelters necessarily, or people that are facing that kind of situations. And we see a lot, don't we, for kind of like food banks and food donations. But actually some of those skills of actually getting people back on their feet and being able to try and help them is going to be really useful.
Yeah, and then I think another time what I had to do was drop off a bus ticket just so somebody could actually get to a job interview. And it's just little things like that. It was en route, and just, you help out in little ways where they appreciate it as well. So they're very grateful.
Yeah, that's really good. So I know we've kind of mentioned it, haven't we? We're kind of hitting that time. It's Christmas, and there's like you say, it's kind of, there's lots of charities, there's lots of good that everyone can kind of get involved in and kind of do. What's the kind of the build up look like at Crisis at Christmas time, and what's the kind of things that are happening?
So during December, well, it's already started. We've got a wish list out already for adults who need the basics for Christmas. We've got a wish list for kids who toys. They need items for Christmas. We also have a Christmas Carol service where people can go and sing along and donate at the beginning of December. We also have the Power Up session, which is next week as well, that we are doing wreath making. And the week after, there is a week of delivery drops. So everything that we've collected on these wish lists, I am actually going out and playing Elf this year. So we are doing the delivery drops for people who have just been rehoused, who do not have anything for Christmas. And the food drops, we are also doing food drops with the run up to Christmas. Christmas Day, we are I'm driving the minibus to pick up those individuals who don't want to be alone and taking them to the homeless shelter. And then they get a meal and they get a lift back to their property. So there's a lot going on with the run up and a lot of organisation. And there's just a space where everybody can go on Christmas Day and just not be alone, because some people, I think that's the biggest fear most, is being alone on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, massive thank you for everything that you're kind of doing for crisis and supporting all the people that do need that kind of support. And after the call, we will share those wish lists and the things that Wyn's talked about, that if there is anything that you're doing or anything that you're looking to do in your office that you're able to kind of help with, I know that the team would greatly appreciate those kind of donations.
Yeah, massively. Thank you.
So I thought, like, with this session, it's quite good to kind of get a two kind of approach. So with Wyn's kind of experience of crisis and the charity work that she does, and I know that there's lots of charities that we all kind of support. I think why I wanted to kind of ask Caroline to the session was very much from the trust that the community trust and charity trust that Caroline's kind of been involved in and set up. So, Caroline, I'm going to speak to you now.
Everyone.
So hopefully, we're all right with internet and everything's all great. So that's brilliant. So I just wanted, I know it is typical. So what I wanted to do is just kind of the first kind of question is, like, what's motivated you to kind of set up the corporate foundation and the kind of the charity, the actual process for registering a charity with the charity commissions? Because I think sometimes that can be a bit daunting for people if they're thinking, right, how do we actually go about this?
Yeah, no, fair question. I think maybe if I kind of take it back a step. So I work at a company called the Valesco Group. So we're a real estate investment manager based in London, and I'm the ops manager and also the EA to the CEO there. But we also have a charitable arm, so it's our corporate foundation called the Valesco Foundation. And I, as Sarah said, so I was part of the team that set that up with the Charities Commission, and then I also sort of sit on the board of trustees, and I'm also responsible for the day-to-day running of it. So in terms of setting up the corporate foundation, I certainly can't take any credit for the motivation in doing that. I joined Valesco in summer 2020, so at the start of the pandemic, and the founder and CEO of Valesco, a man named Charles, he's a very philanthropic man, and he'd been donating to various charities through the company prior to me joining. But one of the first tasks he gave me when I did join was to formally register it with the Charities Commission, which is like the regulatory body for charities. And then ever since then, we have donated a percentage of our annual profits from the company to the foundation for the foundation and the trustees to then distribute. But in terms of registering it, I'm going to be completely honest that I didn't have a clue what I was doing or where to start. And probably someone from a much more established charity could say that I probably still don't have very much of a clue. But there was just such a significant voyage of discovery for me, which is why now, kind of 4.5 years on, I'm super keen wherever possible to pass on those learnings to people. Because Sarah, as you said, it is a really daunting process. Like, where do you even start? So if I can kind of demystify that at all for some people, then that's my goal. So actually registering it took 9 months, and I hope saying that's not going to put anyone off, but I think that's also because I was so unknowledgeable at the time. So the first thing you have to do is actually decide what type of charity you want to be. I don't know how many types there are now, but back then there were 5 different types, and so I had to do a lot of research into kind of, the implications of which type. There's different regulations and compliance depending on which type. There's different risks. There's all sorts of parameters that you have to play within. So that was kind of step one, and we chose a corporate foundation. Then you've got to do kind of admin things like check your name's actually available. There could have been another Valesco Foundation out there. Luckily for us, there wasn't. You have to identify and appoint your trustees. The trustees have to undergo training, so I had to source that. You have to decide your charitable purposes, which is like the focus of your charity. You have to write your governing document, which is a document called a constitution. You've got to open a bank account. You've got to write policies. You've got to establish your grant application process. You need a website. You need to set up all sorts of kind of internal procedures for things like bookkeeping. And only when you've done that can you then start the rather daunting task of actually registering with the commission, and you kind of put together a bit of an application pack. And I would be remiss not to mention, by the way, that I did have the help of an absolutely brilliant charity consultant when I was doing this. So if after this session anyone wants his details, I will happily pass them on. But then I had a few months of back and forth with the Charities Commission, being honest, kind of fielding their questions and amending our constitution wherever we needed to their satisfaction. Because I think one of the rules of a charity is that it's set up solely in the interest of public benefit. And so having it associated with the company, we had to basically completely separate the entities and make sure that the delineation between the two was entirely separate, and that whilst take me, for example, I'm an employee of the company, but they had to stress test that when making decisions as a trustee for the charity, that I would be solely making those decisions in the interest of the charity and in public benefit. And then, we were formally registered in April 2021, and kind of from there, that's where the fun starts, and that's where you can start making grants and making a difference to people.
Yeah, and I think it is that kind of a knowledge pool again, isn't it? Because it's that, let's set up a charity foundation, let's do this, and thinking it's a 5-minute task, and actually it's quite clear that it's not, and it's actually a 9-month kind of program, and that kind of knowledge sharing. And I know there was a couple of people that have been on previous calls that as part of like the CSR Supporters group that wanted to know more around kind of the charity arm of it and how to actually go about it, which is why we kind of invited you onto this call today, Caroline. So well done for that, because it's not an easy task, is it, to actually to do that. You kind of, so great, that it's kind of all set up now, and that's all kind of well established. And what are some of the key kind of responsibilities of actually your role as honorary secretary as part of the foundation?
Yeah, so that's kind of a title I've given myself, if I'm being honest, because I'm a volunteer. There's not really a title that kind of says that you run the organisation. And again, I will completely caveat that I'm absolutely learning as I'm going. But in terms of some of the things that I do, so I'm the point of contact for all of our grantees. So we've supported 20 plus initiatives to date. We started grant making in 2022. And so it's me that is the point of contact for those people. So it's important that, you keep in touch as much as possible. You get updates from them. You give updates about where you are with the foundation. We have to measure the impact of our grant as best as possible throughout the year or the life cycle of that grant, and just nurturing those relationships and being that person that they can come to and even kind of bounce ideas off in terms of how you can increase that partnership. So that does take up quite a bit of my time. I review and respond all of the grant applications. So we probably only get a couple a week now, although a couple of months ago I started getting an absolute influx, like several a day. And I asked one of the charities, like, just out of interest, well, how did you hear about us? And we'd been included in a monthly bulletin from quite like well-known fund, like an organisation that helps fundraising for charities. And so we just got absolutely inundated. So it's me that's then reviewing them and responding to them. A new task I've taken on this year is also identifying and vetting potential new grantees. Kind of to date, we've been quite lucky, as I said, that it's been quite inbound, but I've actually now I'm making a conscious effort to always be on the lookout for charitable initiatives that align with our purposes and our mission, and kind of cultivating those relationships and bringing them to the table for the other trustees. So a bit of like a BD relationship for a charity.
Yeah.
I lead the trustee meetings. I ensure follow-ups are action. That's obviously something that all of us will be very familiar with, kind of on the assistant side. I maintain our website because it's an entirely separate entity. We have to have our own website, so that's something that I maintain. I seek out and arrange volunteer opportunities for the team. Obviously, because the charity it's run from the percentage of the profits of the company, it's absolutely imperative that the team at Valesco, at the group, are bought in and engaged and involved as much as possible. So we do at least a quarterly volunteer opportunity, but often it's more frequent than that. The big one for me was doing the annual return. So that's like the compliance document with the Charities Commission. The first time I did that was an absolute minefield. That's now on public record if any of you want to go look at that and laugh at my first attempt at doing that. And then it's just internal things, like I do all the bookkeeping and paying invoices and actually doing the due diligence on grantees and giving them the money. A bit of everything, really.
I know, and you wear so many hats anyway in your actual day-to-day kind of role as, you know, office manager, operations manager, executive assistant to like the CEO. It's just such a challenging role, and then there's quite a lot of responsibilities and just making sure that it's all kind of fair and things as well. But sounds like you're doing a really good job, so yeah, well done for that. So you have kind of touched on it about actually how do you decide what causes that you support through the foundations, and like what actually is that criteria for the process of like the grant applications and things, especially when you've been inundated with lots of different applications?
Yeah, but that was quite daunting for us at first. Like, we were in this advantageous position where we had this pot of money, and then it's like, okay, well, now what do we do? And there's thousands and thousands of worthy initiatives in the UK alone, and so how do you actually whittle them down? So the Charities Commission set something called charitable purposes, so it's like a focus of a charity, and they've, again, back then there were 13, don't quote me on that, but we chose 4 to focus on. So health, poverty, diversity and inclusion, and education. And we try as best as possible to allocate a quarter of our grants each year to each of those purposes. But what's actually ended up happening is that a lot of our grantees either tick several of those purposes or all of them, because they're quite closely linked. So that's step one. Then we tend to gravitate towards smaller organisations who would kind of typically fall under the radar. And it's certainly not to say that the larger organisations aren't just as worthy, but we feel that we can make more of an impact to smaller organisations that have a much lower annual income and skeleton teams. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable when you kind of see the accounts of some of these charities, and then you actually see the impact that they make and the amount of people that they impact on a yearly basis. It's unbelievable that they manage to do what they do. A big thing for us is we try as best as possible to have a hands up rather than a hand out approach, again, to try and kind of maximise that lasting impact. So like an example of that is one of our new grantees of 2024 actually is a homeless charity called Hand on Heart. And it was originally set up over a decade ago by a husband and wife in their living room in Ealing, and they essentially assemble kind of packs of essential items, so, you know, thermals, toiletries, hats, gloves, etc. And then they distribute them on the streets, originally just in London, but now in the UK. And we met them at the end of last year, and we joined them on one of their distributions. So in the Strand, the whole team went in a very cold evening in December last year. And we kind of pulled up with all of these. We had 150 packs at the time, and they were all piled into this husband and wife's people mover. It was their family car. And we were partnering with another charity that night, and they kind of rocked up in this huge like van, and they kind of all fell out of this van, and it was all just an absolute military operation. And Charles, our CEO, kind of pulled me aside that night and said, we're going to buy them a van. So in the January, that's what we did. We bought them a van. And so for the rest of this year, just watching it's one thing to give money and then to kind of just step back and say you've done your bit, but it's really important for us that we're involved physically, and like we offer and donate our time, but also that we have that lasting impact. You know, because of that van, they as I said, they've now branched out to the UK, and they can now do multiple different locations up north in the UK in one weekend, Whereas before they'd pack their people mover, they'd go up to Birmingham, say, and then they'd do one distribution because that's all they could fit in the car, and they'd come back, and then they'd have to go back up again. Yet now, because they've got this van, that they can do, 3, 4, 5 different locations in a weekend, and it's just made such an impact, not only to them and their lives, but also to the beneficiaries and the guests that they serve.
Yeah, and I think that is really impactful, and like what we were talking with Wyn, actually looking at some of those key skills or those tools that we can actually assist people with. It was actually only you being there on those nights when you were actually helping, and actually what would really make a difference to them as a charity was transport and having that van so that they could actually reach more people and be involved in more. And it's only actually being involved with those activities that you actually see what the impact is. So I'm just going to kind of touch on, because I know there's a number of people that are on the call that probably I know, like myself, we do the odd kind of like cake sale and raise funds for there, and we have like particular kind of like causes and charities that we might support throughout the year, that it might be from a recommendation from a personal experience that someone within the organisation wants to support a particular charity, but like kind of what advice would you give to people that are like looking or considering kind of charities within the workplace, and how to kind of help them make those decisions?
I think for me, like, even, on an individual basis, charitable giving and volunteering your time is incredibly important, but also fulfilling. But I think corporate philanthropy has this unique power to create a much larger and more systemic change just by virtue of it being a corporate. So that's kind of the angle that we apply to it. And it's also why Shiraz actually originally set up the company and the foundation. And I think I might be biased, but I feel that us as business support professionals, we are so well placed to actually influence that charitable giving. The influence that we have within our organisations and the connections. Like, we often, just by virtue of being assistants, we have the ears of kind of the senior leadership team, who are the ones that tend to make the decisions. Sarah, as you and I were discussing kind of before this call, like, we're known for being the doers. Someone out there and do this work, especially when it's on a volunteer basis. We're the ones that are organising events. We've got our fingers on the pulse of the business, so we're listening to the initiatives that are close to your colleagues' hearts. So I strongly feel that we are very best placed to kind of be going to our bosses and pitching ideas, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a corporate foundation. I think that's probably quite an extreme example. There's so many other ways that you can encourage corporate giving. So there's so many organizations out there that now have mentorship programs. Like, by virtue of being a corporate, you will have industry leaders and experts within your organizations that would be so helpful to younger people, or people struggling to get into work, or wanting to, from underrepresented or disadvantaged backgrounds, that could really do with that mentorship. There's a match funding scheme we have at work as well with the foundation, and certainly you don't need a foundation to do this. So we set aside a bit, a pot of money each year that any of our employees, if any charitable initiative they decide to do during that year, and it doesn't have to be anything to do with the purposes of the foundation, we will match whatever they raise. So one of my colleagues at the start of this year, Lupus UK is really close to his heart, and he decided to run a pizza sale in our building. So not only did all of us help him actually organise and run that pizza sale, but then we matched everything that he raised. Volunteer opportunities is another big one for organisations like Crisis. Like Wyn said, there's so many organisations, especially around this time, that are looking for people to actually volunteer their time. Some other ideas: salary sacrifice charity donations is another big one, and it can actually be win-win when you're looking at it from a payroll perspective. So that's a benefit that you could roll out, or to start small, you could kind of go to your boss and ask just to establish a CSR committee, for example, or actually just a charity committee, and kind of start having those conversations and hear what's important to your colleagues and what impact they want to make.
Yeah, and I think it is about listening to the employees as well, and it could be something that you could incorporate as part of your annual staff satisfaction survey, or even kind of a social events and charity kind of survey. So actually, what are some of those charities that are going to be most impactful to the team that you work with? And also, you also find actually, if people are quite passionate about it, you get more help and volunteers to kind of help with those those initiatives and things as well. So I'm keen to just kind of bring Wyn back into it a little bit here as well. So I appreciate from kind of crisis is something that you support personally, and I know that your organisation also supports that. What other things are you doing around Christmas, or any kind of activities that are happening at Freeth that you'd like to share?
At Freeth, sorry, I had a bit of coffee fit then. At Freeth, we are actually helping to donate on the food side.
Yeah.
So we've got that, and we've got bake sales happening as well over Christmas. We do have a charity pot that we just donate to, which is dotted around the building because we're in a shared building. So we do have pots dotted around. So there's quite a few things that we do within the office that helps just to encourage. If anybody wanted to, again, the wish list is a major thing that's been shared amongst many to help out as well.
Yeah, so I think that's great. So I just want to say a massive thank you to both Wyn and to Caroline for kind of gifting your time and very much kind of like supporting the CSR Supporters Group, but also sharing your knowledge and really inspirational stories with everyone. It's been great to kind of hear from you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I'm just